The rules of engagement for U.S. military on American soil just changed. This is the Urban Sentinel, and let's get into it. Department of Defense Directive 5240.01. I'm sure some of you have heard about it, but in short, what it does is local, county, state police, in the event that they have a situation that they require military assistance, the U.S. government can authorize active military or federalize the state militia to then engage and assist with this help that these local law enforcement need. Now, there are conditions. It excludes assisting local law enforcement with search and rescue, any type of humanitarian aid. It is specifically for a case of plain and simple crowd control. Should a local law enforcement have a situation where the civilian population is refusing to obey any type of lawful or unlawful order to disperse or to redirect or to vacate an area, and in the event that this civilian body is hostile and possibly armed, they can require and request assistance from the military in handling the situation. Now, the very slippery slope, as it is, first off and foremost, is the U.S. military taking an active military role on U.S. soil. That's one of the key things that has always been avoided, and that for the purpose of state guard, the state militias, the National Guard, under the control and direction of the governors, would handle any type of normal assistance needed, whether it's disaster relief, whether it is, sectioning off an area due to some major crisis or event, or even crowd control for certain events where they want to have a large enough body of personnel to manage any type of activity going on. With that being said, however, this directive specifically focuses on the ability of the military to use lethal force when necessary against the civilian population. And by and large, we have not seen that since the 60s. So what this really means is if you have a protest where the protesters refuse to leave an area, let's say they decide to isolate and segregate a section of a city, fortify it up, make it into their own little enclave, and local law enforcement is ill-equipped no matter what to handle that situation, they could require assistance from the military, and if it's authorized, the military could come in and assist in clearing out any of the occupiers by any means necessary, including lethal force. Now, does this mean that they're going to be using F-15s and nuclear missiles as one administration had stated before? No, that I don't believe so. But to one extent or another, it does not look well, considering that one of the bases for it simply is if the local law enforcement deems that they are having trouble controlling a civilian population, then at that point it's simply up to whoever that next rung on the ladder is to make the call, for the call to be received, and someone else to decide, send in, the 75th and handle the situation. Now, as you can guess, here in the United States right now, it is 4 days before the upcoming election. The potential, one way or the other, of some type of civil unrest or disturbance or massive large-scale protests on any way, shape, or form, no matter how you view it, are significantly higher. And in that situation, there tends to be a larger civilian population versus the total amount of law enforcement. Even if it's a municipal issue and they call in assistance from other localities, there aren't enough law enforcement to go around to handle the situation properly, to the extent where there's less chance of life being lost or injured. Now, I can imagine this is not going to be A1, day one type of situation. This would be after the police have tried several hours, several shifts to disperse or control the crowd, or in the event that, plain and simple, if someone within the civilian body becomes aggressive or hostile and they are actually armed and engaging police, then that would be a different situation. And yes, local law enforcement have their own rules of engagement, just as the military does. And plain and simple, if you start unloading round after round on police, they're going to return fire. No different than the military. But the caveat in this instance, the way this directive reads, is it basically places the military in charge of the situation, so it no longer remains in the local law enforcement's hand. Even though the military is there to assist, the local law enforcement has called in the big guns because they have reached their maximum capacity, and they look to put an end to whatever this dissension or disturbance is. You might have a situation where, if you remember the Boston Marathon bombing, the local police, supported by other localities and state police, effectively locked down entire neighborhoods and went street by street, house by house, door to door, pulling every single person out of their residence, hands in the air, get down onto the sidewalk, onto your knees, we search you, we search your premises, and then we move on. In a situation like that, you may want to have additional help, and it may be the military that gets called in. So now the potential to have a well-trained military force, in addition to whatever law enforcement is in an area, to stem or quell a civil disturbance or any type of unruly, as it's deemed by law enforcement, event, increases. And the possibility, not exclusively, but the possibility that force could be used in that situation is significantly higher. And depending upon how long this situation lasts, you effectively have a standing army. So if it is a case of a state of emergency that's been declared in a particular area, they could be there days to weeks to months, depending upon what the scenario is that unfolds. And since there is no defined timeline, and perhaps within the minute details of the back channel communications, there is an order of operation as to how to de-escalate or step down the situation. So whether it ended up being a police chief that made the suggestion to the mayor, and the mayor called the governor, and then the governor contacts someone within the Department of Defense, however that goes up the ladder, at a certain point it's going to reach that top rung, and then everything's going to start to trickle down the other side. Just my opinion, I view it as a recipe gone bad, to have a standing army in a civilian population under conditions where use of lethal force is predeterminately authorized, that there is no confusion, that when they get that particular call up, it's not to help put a bridge back up, it's not to help evac people from a flooded area, it's not to do body recovery, it's specifically to ensnare and encircle and encamp individuals, citizens within the community. Now, I could be completely wrong on it. Tell me what you think, look into it, but I don't see it as being a benefit or a plus in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, catch you in the next one.